Good evening, and welcome to the board meeting for the Romulus Community Schools. Today is Monday, November the 27th. Call to order at 6:10. Roll call, please.
Laster. Present. Davis.
Here.
Ebbett. Present. Piles present. McCarthy. Here. Kennard.
Here.
Wester.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be it resolved that the Board of Education accepts the November 23rd, 23 meeting agenda as presented.
Madam Chair, I ask that the Board of Education accept the agenda as amended with the addition of a closed session that was requested by an employee.
Support.
Laster. Piles, yes. Laster.
Yes.
Davis.
No.
Ebbett.
Yes.
Kennard.
Yes.
McCarthy. Yes. Wester.
No.
Motion carries.
Also, can we amend the agenda to remove the payables, please?
Consent
Consent,
agenda.
the consent agenda, okay.
Public comment? Do we have any? Next on the agenda is the presentation for Mount Pleasant, presentation by Erisman Architects. Not sure if I pronounced that right or not.
Erisman Architects.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess so.
Good evening, Board of Education.
Good evening.
So we have had in the past some presentations with, I think it's IDS is our current architectural firm that's been working on several of our projects over the years. And I think to say that some of their presentations have been inaccurate would be an accurate statement. So I have asked Mark Chamberlain to advise on some of the projects that we had currently going, which is room 507 at the high school. We had IDN had presented us with a layout, a design, some cost estimates. Mr. Garland didn't think that those were accurate. He asked if I had known anybody or had ever worked with anybody architecturally, and so I had asked Mr. Chamberlain, who is the managing partner, I guess that's what we would say, managing partner of Erisman Architecture, to take a look at the design, and he did find some inaccuracies. And one of the things that he found in that room particularly was that the first company missed the abatement, which is fairly large, of the flooring. It's a fairly large, I would say a fairly large mishap or mistake. So on that note, we have asked Mr. Chamberlain to consult on a project that's gonna come before you, or we're gonna, at some level or some point, we're gonna ask to go out for bid on one of our former elementary schools, Mount Pleasant. I met with our liability firm, which is Maisel. They had the staff, three of their staff members came to meet with us in district for other reasons, but one of the main reasons I wanted to get across from this company was to clarify that we are not covered at that property. Our property has no liability coverage. It has no accidental coverage for employees only. So if an employee goes into the building, checks the building, gets hurt, we're covered. If a community member goes into that building, gets injured, gets hurt, or gosh forbid something else happens, we're not covered. So I asked regarding a recommendation from Maisel. I said, well, if we could find the additional, or find the dollars to tear the building down, they said, absolutely, you should tear it down. It's a danger. It's something that keeps people up at night. I know Mr. Garland worries about it. I know his staff drives by multiple times a day. We actually at the sinking fund committee, we discussed several options. I don't know that any of those options are viable other than tearing that building down. We don't have a cost estimate or a legitimate cost estimate at this time, but I've asked Mr. Chamberlain to come in and give you just a brief presentation regarding that property, and then potentially going out for bid to see what it would cost to get that property removed and torn down and safe for the community. So this is Mr. Chamberlain, Airsman Architecture.
Thank you, Kevin. Good evening. I just have a brief presentation, kind of just outlining the steps that are involved with tearing down a building. And it's not often that buildings are torn down. Sometimes small additions are taken down to make way for new ones, but a complete demolition, you know, it happens, but it doesn't happen often. So I just wanted to take you through the steps of how that looks and what that would mean to you as a school district. And we'll go from there. So next slide, please. So the first thing that needs to happen is the inspections that are performed by an environmental consultant. You do have an environmental consultant, Arch Environmental, that goes around your buildings probably on an annual basis. Kevin did provide me with the latest document for that building, and everything on there says that they were not able to re-inspect due to the safety concerns of the building. So I'm not sure the exact date that was on that document, but the recent inspection was not done. So that it was like a 1989 document, I think, that identified some things at that time. But basically, they need to go through and identify all the ACM, which is asbestos-containing materials in the building. Particularly regulated asbestos-containing materials, those which become friable when you start tearing down a building, driving on it, you know, kind of mashing some things up. All that needs to be taken out of the building prior to demolition. So things like ACM floor tile, insulation, things like that, all of that has to come out beforehand. And then they also look at things that should also be reviewed for removal, which would be the lighting, light ballast in particular, mercury switches, that is often the case in older buildings, refrigerants, things like that. Slide. So basically the kind of the steps, once they do that report, the environmental consultant provides specifications for how those materials are to be removed. And those get put into a document for an environmental abatement company to remove. That's not normally under our guidance and specifications because our liability doesn't cover environmental concerns. So they would provide that. That would be a supplement to our document that actually goes out to bid. We put together any drawings that are necessary for the demolition and the project manual that includes technical specifications and the bidding requirements. So the proposal form, affidavits, familial affidavits, things like that. From there, we would go out to bid on for the contractors. It's usually like a 2 to 4 week bid period. 2 is kind of on the light side. 4 is probably a long time, especially for demolition. So it'd probably be in the 3 week range. Once we get those bids back, we do a due diligence period of 1 to 2 weeks. We interview the one first, second, third, probably low bidders. We check their references from other school districts, companies, et cetera, that have used them to make sure that, you know, they're a good company to work with, easy to work with. From there, we would give, I guess I'll clear up this nomenclature. We don't actually give a recommendation. We provide all of our due diligence to you, and, you know, we would say that we don't see any reason why this company isn't suitable to do the job. As an architect, we actually can't give a recommendation, because if, say we recommended bidder number 2, bidder number 1 could come back and say we've cost them a job, they've lost profits, et cetera. So we would give that information to you guys for a board presentation, and then your board, you know, approval is probably a 2 meeting period, so that's 2 to 3 weeks maybe. And then there's a contract award negotiation. So we have a sample contract in the bidding documents, but we formalize all that so that they can start. So once that contract is awarded, the first step, and probably the most time-consuming for a project like this, would be the utility disconnections, in particular DTE. Is that who you have here, DTE?
Yes.
So DTE, who knows when they would come out and remove the electric from the building, but that obviously needs to happen first. And then also the plumbing, we need to remove and cap that, any outlets that are going to the street and whatnot. So the first slide here is just an overview, and I apologize, in your packet, it probably only printed one photo, but there was some animations to it, so they're not all there. But this first slide is just the overview of the property. So Mount Pleasant is about a 17.4 acre site. I did my best based on the zoning maps. Generally speaking, that's the configuration of your site. Next slide, please. So what Mr. Brock kind of came to me about is how we could do this in potential phases, depending on what budget money allocations are there. So I kind of looked at it and said, what could we do and how can we phase it so that you could potentially do this over a couple year period or, whenever the funding comes up. So phase one, obviously, is the abatement, because I said that has to go first, right? So any of the regulated asbestos containing material needs to be removed, floor tile, fire doors, insulation, caulking, et cetera. And then any other hazardous materials that I mentioned previously. Phase two, potentially then, could be the actual building demolition. All of that asbestos is out of there, so we could take down the building, haul that off site. And then the third phase, next, would be any parking lot removal, sidewalks, and the drive. I did kind of hear that potentially that drive might be a county road, so whether or not that can be removed, I'm not sure, but, the parking lot, I would think that you would want to remove. Maybe you don't have to if you want to sell the property as is. There's other hard surface pavement on the site, I think particularly close to the ball fields there. I haven't factored on having to remove that, but you could do that as well. There's baseball fencing, et cetera. It really depends on how far you want to take it, or if you just want to sell the property as is and remove your liability, which is the building for sure. So that was just kind of a quick overview of how we thought that this project could work if in fact you wanted to proceed with taking that building down. Sure.
Thank you so much. Any questions?
Madam President. So what are we looking at as far as timing for phase one and then the timing for phase two? Because that would be the two important things in order for our insurance issues that we currently have. So what would phase one timeframe do you think it would take to get DTE and then the city of Romulus in there to do that type of work, do all of this removal of everything that needs to be done, the abatement?
As far as the utility removal, honestly, there was a church convent building that we weren't really involved with, but we were. I know it sounds weird, but it probably took about 2 months for them to get DT out there to disconnect the power before they could even start. So I really can't answer how fast DTE could be out there.
Right.
As far as the abatement goes, I would think it's probably, I guess it really depends on what they find and how much has to go, but it could probably be a 3 to 4 week job maybe.
So to get all of the insulation, the tile, all the hazmat out of there, 3 to 4 weeks, you said?
I would think, but again, an environmental consultant, Arch, would probably have to be brought in. They do need to get into that building and verify everything that has to be removed. So, they would be in a better position to find out, how long the abatement procedure is, but.
And they would, I'm just following through. So then after they go in, they would come to us and present their findings on what we would need to do and how to protect the workers and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I'm sure, they would offer a report like they do for all of your other buildings, and then, then we have to get all those documents together for suitable for bidding. So once they have that report, it's an easy job, so it's probably a 3 or 4 weeks before we would go out to bid then.
Okay, and then one of my concerns is the health and safety of the workers in there. And I've never been part of a demo, so one of my questions is, what is the liability of the district for these workers? Are they covered with their own insurance policies when they go in and they bid on these type of demolishing buildings? Are we protected against any type of repercussion on their health?
Yeah, I mean, the environmental or the abatement contractors who are in there first, they all have their hazmat suits and all that kind of fancy stuff. So they're all protected for that, and you're protected as well, just.
Okay,
And then the building demolition contractor, they again have their insurance for, you know.
okay. Then what is the time frame for demoing a building like that?
Oh, gosh, I mean,
I mean, are we talking a 6-month program? Are we talking a 2-month? Would it be done in a summer timeframe type thing?
a summer or before that. I mean, for instance, the building next to ours office just got demoed. It was a 3-story office building. It probably took them a week and a half to physically take it down, but then it's taken 4 weeks to pick through the piles and
Yeah.
organize stuff and get it off site and things like that. So I mean, it's probably a month to month and a half, maybe.
Do we protect our property with a fence around it after they've demoed and there's concrete and different things around it? Or is it sectioned off? I mean, just,
I would say that you should
Visually
probably
say-
put up a fence around your property right now if the liability is a concern, but, you know.
I brought that up, but, okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions for Mr. Chambers? He should be on.
It's on.
Thank you for that information. So obviously, there's more pieces in this than, what we thought, because of all the steps with removing asbestos and the electricity and all of that. Just the demo part, in your experience, ballpark, what would we be looking at? And I get it's a range, it's approximate. And, right, but I mean, I know that, do we still have the paperwork from the documents when we put this out? I want to say 6 years ago, do we have that, those costs? And are we thinking that this will be a sinking fund project? Okay,
That's been the conversation at Sinking Fund, yes.
okay. So then, I guess my question to that then would be, if we use sinking fund dollars, then are we locked in with the firms we hired for this, for Barton Malow to oversee it and IDS?
I can answer that.
Right, well,
No,
that's
so
why
great
I'm asking,
question.
because that was
So
something.
we do have a contract with both of those companies that is, I've already consulted with district attorneys. We can execute a non-renewal contract. I think it's a 30-day clause. We just give them 30-day heads up that we're not gonna be utilizing them, but we're not tied to them to use them for any projects moving forward. They were tied to some of the ESSER projects that were in the bond money that came in from 1998, I think it was. But we're not tied to using them specifically, no. The board we can do however the board would like to do with what company.
I'm sorry, Mr. Brock, we were tied to who for the bond?
We're not tied to IDS.
Okay,
Moving forward, we're not tied to IDS or Barton Mallow.
okay, because I thought for sinking fund is when we hired them, and I thought we were tied to Barton Malow for the.
So I had the contract reviewed. There's nothing in there that stipulates we are tied to them for any amount of money or any amount of projects.
Okay.
There is an execution clause a 30-day clause that I can notify them, the district can notify them that we're no longer gonna be using their
Okay,
services.
that's good to
So,
know.
yeah, I had an attorney review that, so, hence why Mr. Chamberlain is here to give us some information.
And then my last question is, Mr. Chamberlain, thank you for this presentation and all the information. I don't mean to speak over you, but the questions that I have are more district-related. When we go to the sinking fund, we were told that because of the overspending of sinking fund dollars, there would be no 23, 24 projects, and we wouldn't have anything until 24, 25. So are we talking about having this in next school year? or are we looking at this sooner?
So I don't think in terms of school years. So 23, 24, your statement is accurate. I think about it in terms of fiscal year. So our fiscal year ends June 30th. We collect taxes starting July. I would think that this would have a crossover effect from one fiscal year to the next. So I would look at this as being a summer project for next summer if the timeline warrants, at least the abatement phase or looking at abatement. What Mark didn't mention, and I'm not saying this because he didn't mention it, but some of the projects that I've been involved in, when you start to piecemeal this out, you pay extra for companies to come back to set up. There's a setup charge. So if we have an abatement company come out and do the abatement, that's fine. But if we have a construction come out and do the demo work on the building and then leave and then come back to do the demo on the parking lots, there's additional costs that come with it rather than when they're on site doing the building demo and then when they're done with the building demo, do the parking lot demo. So when we phase this out over months or over period of time, it's going to cost us more money. That's why it's hard to give, I don't want to speak for Mark. Mark's a professional. I hesitate on giving out even a ballpark figure with the way the economy is right now and the way the inflation is. If Mark said it was $500,000 now, when we go out to bid and it comes back and it's $1.5 million, we're all gonna be like, whoa, Mark said it would be.
Right.
Well, I don't want to tie anybody to that number. I don't want to tie us to a number. We can all throw a number out there, but at the end of the day, I would like to put it out for bid. We don't have to accept any bids.
Sure.
But I would like to put it out for, or I would like the board to authorize us to put it out for bid to see what we get back, to see if it's even in our budget.
Right, and I just asked the ballpark because I'm thinking sinking fund and how we're not doing any projects this year, and then the other things that we already have part of that 3.4 million allocated for, so that's why I asked, but thank you.
I would think that this being a crossover project, this would probably eat up, if we decide, if the board authorized the use, or authorized us to go out for bid, this has the potential of eating up a majority of that sinking fund money as a crossover from one fiscal year to another. I'm just guessing. I don't want to put a number on it because I don't want to be held to a number down the road and somebody says, well, Mr. Brock, you said, well,
Sure,
I'm
sure,
not a
right, I get that. And then my last question, Mr. Brock, would be for you. Has there been any consideration or discussion to selling that property as is and allowing the next owner to handle demolition?
That's a great question, and I posed that question to Maisel. I don't know that we would get authorization to sell that building as is. I don't know that there's a company out there, or the impression that I got, and this is my own impression, not that anybody has said this, but in my conversations with Maisel, and maybe you can speak to this, maybe you know, I don't know. In my conversations with Maisel, I don't know that there's a company that would finance that building. It would have to be a cash purchase, and that they would be responsible for the abatement and if whatever needed to be done. I don't know that in its current state, the building can be sold the way it is, to be quite honest with you.
Okay, is it
my
something we
understanding.
can just get information on so that we are fully informed of all the options?
I would think if we went out to bid, that could be part of our bid pack, that we could ask for the construction company to do an evaluation of whether or not that building could be sold as is. The fact that our own staff has been, I don't want to say directed, but has not gone into that building, there's a reason they don't go into
Right.
that building.
Because I asked because we had another property that it was not advisable to go into, and it had asbestos, and we sold it as is. That's why I'm asking, comparing the cost of lowering the selling price and just removing the liability sooner than even having to wait for it. It's just, I was just wondering, so we have.
I would say to make that part of the bid, to put that in the bid pack so that they can bid on whether or not, or tell us whether or not it can be sold as is.
I can make comment regarding the sale. It is currently listed as is. In the last year, we have had people sign off on a waiver that they will not hold anyone accountable for their health issues if they walk through it, which people have. We've had three organizations walk through that building. They know that it's for sale as is. So with it being listed like that, I would find it hard to believe that we can't sell it as is. So I would venture to address the realtor or a realtor to find out what the actual reasoning is that it wouldn't be able to be sold as is.
And Maisel, and then maybe look at what a reasonable price would be.
Well, it's
Because I'm
listed
concerned
as
about the
reasonable
liability,
price.
and now that we've said in open meeting that we have no coverage, and if someone gets hurt, we've announced that in open meeting, so I'm just wondering if potentially it may be more prudent to lower the price and sell that and just be out of the out from under that liability.
Yeah, and I didn't have that information when I spoke to Maisel. Maisel was not confident that that building could be sold as is, so I don't know that I would trust a real estate agent, but I don't know who I'm happy to reach out to the real estate agent and
Right,
get
it's
their
listed
information,
currently
but
for $675,000.
It's nice.
Olive Street first.
Thank you for that
But yeah,
information.
or maybe ask Maisel, because they should have something definitive, whether yes, no, or they don't know.
And I'm not sure that it's the asbestos that's the issue. I mean, there's probably asbestos in this building, but it's the years of deterioration, mold, water, things like that that are making it.
Another bedroom.
You want a mass portion?
Thank you.
You want an ask?
Thank you, Secretary Cox, for your questions. Does anyone else have anything? Thank you, Mr. Chamberlain, for taking the time out today and coming in with your presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have our 23-24 state and NWEA assessment updates by Mr. Scott Rourke.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
So I want to introduce Mr. Wark as a part of the Teaching, Learning, Professional Development team. Before he goes into his presentation, I just want to highlight some of the incredible things that the TLB team is doing at this time. Specifically, we had a wonderful curriculum council meeting where we actually had POC support for our high school, common assessment development for our elementary and middle school, and also coaching support for interventionists. We also are doing a textbook adoption for our high school as well in ELA, starting on Friday, looking to have a pilot in February of next year. And then also rounding out the collaborative classroom adoption. So again, getting some things in place. I think we're seeing some impact on our data as well. So I just want to speak to some of the things. We have a long list of highlights, just a little snapshot. You'll hear more in the future about the TLP team. And at this time, I turn over to Scott Rourke.
Thank you, Dr. Gardner. And thank you, Board, for having me tonight. I'm here to present to you some data that you've requested, and there's 3 sets of data that I'm going to present. One set is state assessments comparisons with area school districts in Wayne County with in relation to Romulus. We'll also look at a building breakdown of our 2023 state assessments from last year. And then lastly, wrapping that up with our current NWEA fall grade level performance data for this current school year. I want to preference this with saying that I am breaking a cardinal data coach rule by just presenting data to you and not using a data protocol so that we have more meaningful discussions around the data. But in the situation that we are in, this is just a presentation just to review the data. So hopefully the data police don't wait for me outside to take away my data coaching license.
Tell them to come see us.
All right, I will. So I want to start off with our TLP mission. Just to summarize it, it's to collaborate with our instructional staff so that we can improve the education that we provide to our students. And then the list of our TLP team that Dr. Gardner highlighted. So getting into our data for our state and NWA assessment data. First, we're going to start with our MSTEP English Language Arts area district comparison so that we can see where Romulus falls at compared to all the school districts that are surrounding the Romulus area. So for ELA, English Language Arts, we can see that Romulus is somewhere in the middle of the surrounding school districts with last year's ELA MSTEP performance being at 30% of our students being proficient in ELA on the MSTEP. Moving over to math MSTEP. our grades 3 through 7 for M-STEP. Proficiency is 18% of students being proficient. So in your packet, you can see the comparison with the other surrounding school districts. So that is our elementary and middle school M-STEP performance. So once we get into 8th grade, we change over to the PSAT, which is our College Board Assessment. So with our 8th grade,
Oh, I'm sorry, I was just asking, I didn't see the math, and I was asking if it's in the packet. The math?
the math,
I see the M-STEP ELA, but then I didn't see the 18%. The next page was onto the PSAT.
We're missing a page.
okay.
Oh, you know what,
Here's the map.
go to the last page.
Is it out of order?
It's out of order.
This?
Not that one, no.
So we don't have the one that you just showed.
We don't have.
Okay.
Oh, that's okay. Is it,
We'll get it.
is it in the packet?
I'm using my tablet, not my package today.
I'm sorry about that.
We'll get it, one, two, just so that you have that data.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so PSAT, evidence-based reading and writing. So this is our 8th grade. So last year, this would have been our middle school, Romulus Middle School, and then also RVLC, which also had middle school students in it as well. So for 8th grade, we are at the bottom of this list of the districts that I'm comparing that surround Romulus Community Schools. PSAT math for 8th grade. Again, this includes Romulus Middle School and then also RVLC, Romulus Virtual Learning Center last year, because that program also had 8th grade students in it.
Can you tell us that number? We don't have that.
Oh, that one? Romulus percent of students for PSAT was 3%. All right, moving on to SAT, high school. Evidence-based reading and writing. The surrounding districts, Romulus falls at the end of that list with 22% of students being proficient. And again, this is Romulus High School and then also RVLC, so it includes both schools. Math? Do you have SAT math? Left out the math.
No, ma'am.
All right, so SAT, grade 11 math. The percent of students for RCS is 4% of students. So that's at the bottom of our surrounding list of school districts. So that part wraps up the comparison of area school districts with last year's M-STEP, PSAT, and SAT performance. So moving on into our building breakdown of our local, of our schools here in Romulus Community Schools. So the data that's on here, there's 2 data points that I put on here. The bars are the data from last year's state assessment, whether that's M-STEP, PSAT, or SAT. So the bar represents the percent proficient. And then I also added our 2024, this school year's target, proficiency targets, based on our MyKIP, our district improvement plan goals and targets. So our target for this year, for 2024, is that all schools would increase their proficiency by 10% based off of the 2022 school year state assessment data. So looking at this,
We don't, I'm sorry, we don't know the 2022 data, right?
I don't have that on
Okay,
the chart yet.
I see the 23, I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
okay.
And is that 22, 23, or 21, 22? How is 22 defined?
This data is 22-23 school year.
Okay. So a 1 year.
Yep, so the 1 year look. So looking at this data to explain what we're seeing here. So starting with Barth Elementary. So Barth's percent proficient last year is 45% of students were proficient. So their target for this school year was set at 34% of their students being proficient, which means that currently they have exceeded their 2024 target. So whatever. Should be clapping. So Hale Creek's percent proficient in ELA, English Language Arts, last year was 29%. The target for this year is 29. So they are in a good spot to meeting their target for this current school year. Romulus Elementary. Last year, 33% of the students were proficient in ELA. Their target for this year is 30% being proficient. So they've also exceeded their target for this year. So they are in a good spot to meet exceeding their targets.
Why would we reduce the target?
I'll explain that.
Okay.
Wick Elementary, 16% last year. So their target for this year is 29% of their students being proficient. Romulus Middle School was 19% last year, with their target being 21% being proficient this year. So they are close to reaching that target for this school year. Romulus High School, 22% proficient. Their target is 32 for this year. And then RBLC, I took out last year's elementary and middle school students and just had their high school students so that we can start accurately comparing year to year for RBLC. So taking out all of those, taking out the elementary and the middle school, left RBLC at 0 students being proficient. Their target for ELA is 10% for this year. So looking at Barth and Romulus Elementary, since they have exceeded their 2024 target, we are working with them, the TLP, the Teaching, Learning, and Professional Development team, is working with them to reestablish new targets for those 2 schools. And the MDE has just released their 2032 targets for proficiency and for growth. So we're going to be using those numbers to help Barth and Romulus Elementary set new targets, set higher targets for themselves.
Mr. Brewer? When do we set targets? When are the targets set?
We set these targets last year as part of the partnership agreement when MDE came in with us to redevelop our MyKid plan,
Okay, so
our
you're doing
district
that
improvement
winter?
plan. Yeah.
Okay.
So because of that partnership agreement, our identified schools were based on the 2022 school year. We started from that point to establish our 2024 target and then our 2025 target.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I understand correctly. The targets were set when the initial conversations with the partnership happened. And then after that, we received the M-STEP data that showed where our students actually are?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So looking over at math for last year in our building breakdown, Barth Elementary, 41% of the students were proficient last year on the M-STEP, and their target for this current school year is 31%. So again, Barth has exceeded its 2024 target. So they've exceeded in language arts, English language arts, and then also in math. So, good job, Bart. Hale Creek, 24% of the students last year are proficient on the M-STEP. Their target for math is 27%. Hale Creek, Romulus Elementary, 22% of their students last year were proficient on the M-STEP. Their target for this current school year is 17%. So again, they exceeded their targets. So not only do we have to work with Barth and Rom-L for ELA targets, new targets, but we also have to work with math targets for them as well. And we also have to work with WIC with their new targets, because last year 13% of their students were proficient. Their target for this year is 10% of students being proficient. So we're working with WIC as well in reestablishing new targets for 24, 25, and also using the guidance from MDE with our 2032 targets for proficiency and growth. Romulus Middle School has 6% students being proficient. Their target for this year is 11. Romulus High School, 4% of the students are proficient. Its target is 14 for this school year. And same situation with RVLC, 0 proficient right now because I took out the elementary and the middle school students from RVLC from last year and just went with strictly their high school population. So wrapping up, now I'm turning over to NWEA and our fall performance based on students being at grade level expectations. So NWEA provides us with some guidance on what should be considered grade level expectations. And that is based on their linking study with where students, what percentile students typically fall in to be proficient on one of the state assessments. So typically, if a student scores at the 61st percentile on the NWEA map, whether it's math or reading, they're highly likely to be proficient on the state assessment in the springtime. So that could be M-STEP, it could be PSAT, or it could be SAT. So that 61st percentile and above is a good predictor on how many of our students are going to be proficient on the spring assessment. So that helps us to identify which students are close to being proficient based on their NWEA MAP score, and allowing us to figure out what are some of the supports that we need to do to help those students get over that hump, those students not being the not yet students and being proficient students. Then it also helps us to identify which of those students are furthest away from being proficient, so that we can wrap around the services for those group of students to really help them close that gap, accelerate their learning so that they can, throughout the process of intervention, get closer to being proficient. So this data here helps us see, starting at the beginning of the school year, what percent of our students are performing at grade level, and then how likely those students are going to be proficient on the M-STEP or SAT, one of the College Board assessments. So as I go across, we have Barth in the fall. Currently, 31% of their students are performing at grade level. Hale Creek, 20%. Romulus Elementary, we have 33% are performing at grade level. Again, that means that 33% of those students were at the 61st percentile or above on their math MAP assessment. WIC Elementary has 21% of students performing at grade level. Romulus Middle School, 12%. Romulus High School, 16%. And then RVLC is also using NWEA MAP as one of their benchmarks for their school improvement plan. They are a partnership agreement school, so we had to use several measures to monitor the progress that they were making. So they elected to use MAP as one of their assessments. So right now, 18% of RVLC students are performing at grade level. And to close this out, we have a look at our reading map performance. So beginning in the fall, Barth Elementary, 35% of those students are performing at grade level. Powell Creek has 21%. Romulus Elementary is at 32%. Wick is showing 25% of students being grade level performance right now. Romulus Middle School, 25%. Romulus High School, 20%. And Romulus Virtual, RVLC, 16%. So the goal here is that by winter term, we should see each of these buildings with their percentages increasing so that we get closer to having more students being proficient towards the springtime and having that good predictor of who's going to be proficient on the M-STEP, who is close to being proficient, so that we can help those students get over that hump and meet the M-STEP or the College Board targets. So that is your fall update for our state assessments and for NWEA. Have additional questions?
I have,
Thank you, Mr. Rourke, for that.
You're welcome.
Trustee Evans?
thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Rourke. So as I see some of these, everybody's doing really well. I'm concerned with the high school. What about the graduation rate with these numbers at what they are? And also, I'm wondering, is there any type of extra help that we are giving students after school? Are we providing tutoring? Are we investing in our students after school to help them get better with their education?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So my understanding is that the high school is establishing an after-school program. We actually just wrote into a grant additional funds to go towards our after-school program for our high school specifically. So we're getting those details ready at this time in collaboration with the high school for after-school programming. I know that we also have a organization that wants to bring robotics to our after-school program as well. So we have students who learn different ways in order to get to those concepts. So those are the two updates I have regarding the after-school programming that's underway at the high school at this time. For the K-8, we do have the PM Scholars at some of our schools. That is an opportunity for after-school support for those students as well.
And the Renaissance program.
In the Renaissance program, yes, the middle
Okay,
school.
so what is
Thank
our
you.
graduation rate at the high school with these numbers?
I will need to get that data. I don't have it at this time. I can get that for you.
Please, I would appreciate that, because these numbers, to me, if I were a parent looking at this, I would be very, very discouraged with these type of numbers that I'm seeing. And again, we had a lot of money go unused in our Secretary Piles, what was that money that went unused, untouched?
Oh, the unearned revenue, according to our audit, we left, I don't know, like, 1.4 or 1.7 million dollars, unused. I mean, we haven't lost it, but, that was a lot of, 31A money and at-risk funding. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm wondering, like, when we see the need in the data, what practical applications are we doing? Like, are we crossing this with attendance? Are we finding out if the lowest performing students who aren't showing the proficiency or growth, are they absent? Are we putting reinforcements in for, teacher instruction or supports? Or what exactly are we doing to make sure that our resources are most effectively allocated to move this up, instead of just look at end results like graduation rate or, data like this?
So one thing that we're doing with our instructional specialists, Mrs. Saylor and Mrs. Marshall, we actually identified the teachers are supporting based on the same data. So we had a workshop that Scott facilitated for us to see, okay, which teachers need support based on the data. Those teachers that are not yet, that have all those students who are just there to get them over the edge to be proficient. So that's one way we're really being intentional about who we're supporting and the time. I'll also say our PLCs. Having those professional learning communities to come back and discuss the data as a PLC is also helping. I know we had a virtual one for elementary, just having those discussions and talking about it. And again, the curriculum resources, again, that's a gap that I know we have. So we basically have elementary done. Next is our high school for ELA. Again, getting those curriculum resources to ensure that our teachers have the tools in order to support them. Another piece is getting student input. So we've identified at least 3 surveys to see, okay, we've identified this curriculum and these strategies. Is it working for you? Because we can think as adults, yes, it's working, but the students are saying, not really. So that's another thing that we're actually going to institute to get that student input. So that's a couple of strategies I would say we're using like right now to really see, okay, we see the data, now what? Let's get to work. So those are a couple of strategies. There's many, many more that I can speak of, but that's just a couple.
I guess from a board level, my question is, since we will be amending our budget in another month or 2, is it possible for us to get feedback through you directly from our teachers and students, and instead of and just ask them, what do you need? Or what are the barriers? And then bring that back to us so that when we amend the budget, we can make sure that we know what resources, what supports are needed, and we can amend the budget and allocate resources accordingly so that we, a few months after that, we see noticeable improvement. So we're not just waiting it out.
Yes, and we already use a platform in our curriculum council meeting where we get feedback from our teachers and our leaders, and we actually speak to that feedback in the meeting. So that's one platform we already have. I think always having those conversation discussions to actually hear, and I think the surveys from our students and also our families will be very important. So I would say yes to your question.
Well, I think you had made the statement that you wonder where the teachers need the extra help, or if they need the extra help. In my eyes, and you can call me sarcastic, you can call me what you want, with these numbers, they all need help. The students need tutoring after school. They need extra help. And to have unused money sitting there, and this isn't you, this is this board, the superintendent, the finance person who couldn't tell us anything about our budget when we had our budget hearing. That is unfair to the students in the community of Romulus. We should have invested a ton of money in our tutoring. And instead, our students are going home. And that is not fair to this community, nor our students.
So I do want to clarify, we do have a team, but there's still 2 people, and there's over 200.
You have how many teachers, is what I'm saying.
Over 200
Correct.
teachers.
And those 200 students or teachers need support.
Correct.
And it can be done in tutoring after school. Okay? And like I said, we've got all of this unused money, and it's sitting there, and our students, our numbers are the lowest on every graph. That is unfortunate.
I was speaking to the actual teachers. You talk about us identifying the teachers that need support based on the data, as opposed to helping all the teachers. I'm saying we have 2 team members on our team, and so we're definitely using them to the best of their ability. We're bringing on the Math COSA as well to support them, to focus on the K through 5. So I do want to let you know that we are being very intentional about the teachers we support based on the data. As we get more added to our team, we can help more teachers. But I definitely understand about the tutoring.
Okay, helping the teachers through all of this additional adult help, helping the team is not a direct help to students. You need tutors. I don't know another way to say this. Your staff, your direct staff that you are referring to, are not sitting in the classrooms after school with the students. That's what we need.
That is one strategy,
It's
yes.
the only strategy to help kids.
Based on our research, in order to impact student achievement, one strategy based on effect size is a teacher in front of the student during the school day. So after school tutoring, yes, is one strategy, but also having that high quality teacher in front of that student from the time from minute and bell to bell, that has the most impact along with the principal. So I think that's one thing we're really focusing on, building capacity in our teachers is going to have a huge impact. And I'm looking forward to the data in the winter.
Dr. Gardner, I know
Yes.
that the high quality instruction in every classroom is important, and that is where we see theoretically the most impactful results. However, our reality is poor attendance. So we can have a very impactful teacher, pick the best impactful teacher if that exists, and who's there spot on, but when students are missing at different times, that teacher who's impactful and delivering high quality instruction, it's lost when students are at all different points of learning, either because that's just where they are or because of attendance. So because attendance is a huge issue, that tutoring would support teachers because it would help those students who are behind catch up, so that high-quality teacher who's delivering that high-quality instruction isn't having to hit every point on the spectrum. So, and one more thing is, what do teachers say that they need? Like in your conversations with teachers, what are our teachers saying? Here's what would really help us.
Time, support with discipline problems. Those are the two highest that I'm hearing, that we're hearing as a team when we hear from our teachers. Like, we need time, we need support. I know we are switching our professional development model, because right now we pull the teachers out of their classes and sometimes put subs in our classes. They're saying, no, Dr. Gardner, TOP team, we want the consultants in our rooms with us, right next to us, elbow to elbow, coaching with us, co-teaching with us. So we already have two companies we're working with to ensure the teacher is getting support in the classroom with the students. So that's one thing we heard, I would say glaringly, at the last POC, that told us, okay, TOP, let's go back to the drawing board, because it's bringing the teachers out of the classroom, having the traditional PD, is not working. That's not what they need. So I would say those are the three high. And again, it's not just the teachers from my lens, it's also our administrators. They're on the front lines. And so we have to make sure they're also instructional leaders. So also building capacity in our administrators as well. So I would say those are the three top things that we're hearing as a TOP team. And we are doing things to help and support the teachers and administrators based on those things.
My last question is for Mr. Rourke. Thank you for giving us data compared to, districts around us, specifically in our ISD. Did you look at the data and compare us to the two major charters in the city and how we compare to them? And I ask that because they have so many of our students.
I didn't do that for this presentation, but that was data that was given to the superintendent to present at the beginning of the school year. So we have looked at how our charter schools are faring compared to our district.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else?
Great.
I had questions. I was just wondering how, Dr. Gardner, how often are the PLCs going on to go into the classrooms to get the feedback from the teachers or whatever you're observing to take back to kind of go hand in hand with the data, like you're seeing this, and how often do you guys?
You asked about PLCs or when our TOP team are going and supporting the teachers?
When you're going in to observe the teachers, how
Okay.
often are you doing that?
That is 4 days a week. So Monday through Thursday, our instructional specialists, and we have a literacy COSA, they're in the classrooms all day, Monday through Thursday, and Friday, they're supposed to come in the office and do have meetings, but they're still supporting teachers. Like, Dr. Gardner, I didn't go see this teacher, I need to see him some more. So I would say sometimes 5 days a week, they're in the classes. Sending great emails, and also including our administrators on the emails as well, to say these are your goals, these are your growth. We had a great time seeing you interact with your students. Very positive and supportive, but also giving that grow and constructive feedback as well, so you can actually grow as a person and also as a teacher. So almost every day.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to certainly speak on this one. I presented to the Chamber of Commerce and I gave a lot of data. It's easy to look at that, but there's some other stories. I would love to be able to present that to the entire community. They need to know what's going on here and the history. So there's a data don't lie. I've said that day one, and everybody saw it on Tuesday. What I don't want to be lost is that there's been gains. That's huge, okay? There has been huge, that's huge. I don't go back to 10 years ago, I go back to 2 years ago. And I can tell you there's been gains. I like to see that I'm like blown away, like, yes, we made our goals in some respects. You know, I was sitting there when we were going over the goals and we were gonna set that little goal, remember that? Okay, and I was like, there's no way, you have to raise that. So I'm glad that we have been, courageous, not the word. Just, we put a number that should have been the number, which is
To take a
10%.
risk.
Instead of putting 30% and 40%. We look at that data, some of us are like, and I understand where Trustee Evans is like that, and I am too. If you first look at that, you're like, dang, God, that's terrible, truly. But I also think about the gains that have been made, and I'm very pleased in the direction that we're going. It seems to be that we're trending positively instead of on a decline. As a teacher, having been one, at the end of the day, guess what? I want to go home. I've spent 8 hours with your child, it's your turn as the parent. It's your turn now. Okay, it's not my turn to spend another 2 hours. It's tough. And people have this demand on educators that we're supposed to do another 2 hours. Okay, at some point we have to bring parents in too. There is an accountability that should not just fall on the educator. As I've always said though, an educator gets 8 hours, a parent sometimes gets 6 hours. What are you doing with your 6 hours and what am I doing with my 8 hours? And we need to start looking at that. What are we doing for our 8 hours? And what are they doing for their 6 hours? I want nothing but positives for kids, okay, but I also understand it can't be just me, okay? The child has to have some accountability as well as the parent, okay? I'm not here to blame parents, but I believe that parents can be working a little bit harder too, okay? And also from me and the board, okay, so we have after-school activities. Let's say we have tutoring. If it's not mandatory, I don't want to do it. If it's mandatory, then I want to stand here as the board and say, if they don't go, then what? There has to be something. If we're going to demand that, there needs to be something behind that. Or what? And I've always said the or what. If there's no or what, it doesn't matter. As I spoke to the Chamber of Commerce, and I did not share this with the board, I don't think so. We just implemented our chronic absence practice. In 1 week, 45 kids have had more than 3 days of absences. 45 kids. When I was at the Chamber of Commerce, I said, when you look at 40% of your students who are chronically absent, you tell me then. Does the achievement shock anybody? I don't think it shocks one teacher. It does not shock me when 40% of our kids are not coming. We can try to do everything that we can possibly do, and I believe that everybody is trying. And I'm not gonna say parents aren't trying, but everybody can do just a little bit better because those results, as I said at the Chamber of Commerce, those children live here. So if we fail to educate them, where do you think they're going to live? Here.
Yep.
So I think we all should, we look at it, we should be, there are some positives. I'm very pleased at the work. I'm glad that we have a TLP team. We didn't have that last year. Okay, now we can start holding more people accountable and we can expect some of the things that I'm seeing. I love it. We still have a long way to go, but I thank the board. I would say I would be remiss if I didn't thank you for allowing us to have an instruction department for the first time, and you all know it, I don't know, but the first time in having a real department. Let's give it a chance to work. I know that they're working hard and I appreciate that. Mr. Rourke, love the data that you get, but I also want the board, yes, I cringed when I got this. I cringed when I was at the board, Chamber of Commerce, and I said this, and I'm like, there's no lie though. There's no lie, okay? We can only do what's in front of us with the kids. But we also have to understand that there have been some gains in the last 2, 3, 4 years. I don't know, we've seen them.
Yep.
So keep doing the work that we're doing. Board, keep asking those type of questions and let's work together. We work together, I believe that we can get better results.
Dr. Edmondson, thank you for
Pius.
pointing out of that, when we look at data, we have to look at it, we have to be courageous enough to look at it so we can formulate plans. But there also have been a lot of gains and positives, so thank you for highlighting that. And Ms. Evans had asked about our graduation rate, and on my school data, but here's a positive gain. On my school data, and they have for school year 21-22, that's the last that's on here, and our graduation rate in June 2022 was higher than it's been since 2013. So that is an incredible gain. I mean, we're going back, previous administrations, boards, all of that. And our graduation rate in 2022 was higher than it's been in the last 10 years. So that's a significant gain. And It dropped because of COVID in 2020, and then it came back and increased by 25%. So from 21 to 22, so that's significant.
And also, thank you for that. We kind of had this conversation today. We were like, we're over COVID. We keep talking about it all the time. Everybody's talking about COVID. But we still have to understand that those 2 years, there was a tremendous learning loss.
Yeah.
We've all seen it. I go into classes and a fifth grader should know how to multiply. They can't multiply.
Right.
Okay, so, and it's not just our story. That's everybody's story. Well, that's not true. Certain communities, they did all right through COVID, while others struggled to get through COVID. And I think we know how that's aligned. But thank you.
Yep, it's positive news.
Thank you, Mr. Rourke, for all the data.
Thank you.
You're welcome, and I'll see you back in February with an update.
Thank you. Be it resolved that the Board of Education approves the November 27, 2023 consent agenda as presented. Matters listed under the consent agenda are considered routine in nature by the Board of Education and will be acted upon by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items. If any member of the board or any citizen requests discussion of an item, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will become the first item of business under the report of the superintendent portion. A is the approval of the minutes for the Board of Education meeting of November 13th, 2023, regular meeting. B is the approval of the bills for payment submitted by Dr. Maria Gitzinger in the amount of $911,496.01. And C, approval of the personnel actions as submitted by Human Resources Director Kevin Brock, the employment of Eric Ball, 7th grade social studies teacher, Romulus Middle School, Malcolm Martin, custodian at Romulus High School, and Kristen Harris, general education social worker at Romulus High School.
Madam Chair, I have a question about the employment. If we could remove that, please? Or I don't know if I can ask it here.
Are we doing an amendment to remove it? There was
No, just I'm requesting it be removed.
the employment?
Yes. I just have a question. And also requesting, Subbits had stated bills for payment.
So the consent agenda will just be approved with the approval of the minutes.
Support.
We have a motion by President Wester, supported by Treasurer Davis. Roll call vote.
Davis,
Yes.
Piles, yes. Kennard,
Yes.
McCarthy,
Yes.
Evetts,
Yes.
Laster,
Yes.
Wester,
Yes.
motion carries.
So now we're into the
Thought I
report.
didn't have any.
So, we removed item B, so what was the question for
My
that?
question is, Eric Ball, 7th grade social studies teacher, is
I did B first. We removed B and C.
oh,
Right, I'm
okay,
just gonna go in order,
okay,
alpha order.
sorry.
No problem. So we removed the bills for payment. What was the question on those? I think that was trustee
Ms. Evetts.
Evans.
I have, and I should have sent these, so I apologize. It has to do with, specifically, some bills that are paid from 2018 to 2022. Past due
Call that
bills.
delinquent, wouldn't we?
I would call it, well, I'm wondering why we're paying something that is that old. And has it been encumbered, okay? And then we have another Lilly Labor Law Firm. That is not one of our approved, it's the second page. That is not one of our approved attorneys. And yesterday, I sent an email to, or it was late last night, I sent an email to Eve
Motions.
regarding motions, and that I would like to see our motions get numbered now, and then when we see this large number for CDW, we can, if they would know what motion it was associated to, so that now we're not looking and saying, wow, $176,000. What did we vote on that? When did we vote on that? And we could reference the motion right away. We can go back ourselves rather than asking to have someone else go backward for us. So, I'm looking at this, at transportation, Fidelity Transportation. We addressed the one company,
Special ed.
but we're still out here just forking out money for transportation. And I would like to really see an in-depth analysis of all of these all these extra transportation costs. We got, the one company went away, I don't see that anymore. But, yeah, it's getting to be a large number, and I don't understand why. On here, we have Miller Johnson, labor, a charge for legal service, labor/employee. What is Miller Johnson? I guess I'm just wondering what that line item would be. Because they don't handle our labor. It's another one of our lawyers. So I apologize, but we also only have 1 week of payables. We normally have 2 weeks. And then I would ask also the one question that really is a large amount is the ORS payments. Are we caught up? We've used up all of our credit.
Yeah, I
We've
believe
used it
so.
all up.
I still believe we have the credit, because I was talking to Dr. Gisting about it. I believe that she said I don't know that we still have it though. But I will get answers as long as you have them and Eve gets them, then I will look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I apologize.
Question?
I didn't have access to my computer over
That's
the
all right.
weekend, and these are questions that I really, if we're paying $218,000 for ORS and yet we still have a credit out there, what's the logic?
Yeah,
Okay.
you can quote me on it, but I could be wrong. That wouldn't be the first time.
No, that's fine. That's fine. So thank you. Eve, thank you very much for responding about numbering the motions so that we can then actually have that.
I guess I just want to clarify, do you want
I-
them,
Whatever numbering system you come up with.
Do you want them numbered like from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, or just numbered at each
I
meeting
think-
and starting over?
In theory, it should be from the beginning of the year to the end, so it's consistent and followed, but, so since we're starting from this point, you might wanna, you can start with, numeric order, and then next year we'll start.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for all of your help with everything.
So my question on that is, for instance, the ESSER 3 I don't know what that is, RTEC for $175,291.05. Is that something from a previous motion?
What page you on? I'm sorry.
Which page, Debbie? I'm sorry, Secretary
Yeah,
Miles.
it's the last page of the check register. It's,
I see it.
yeah. It's to CDW Government, Inc.
Right, we know that's the computer software updates and everything, correct?
That more than, with that amount, more than likely that's Chromebooks.
Oh, all the Chromebooks that we voted on, that we approved.
Yeah, those would have been, it would have been something that was going on. It was ESSER funds, which was budgeted before I arrived.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yep.
And then, let's see. I had a question about, I also had a question, past due invoices for, how do you say that? HERFF Jones? HERF.
Yeah, that's the one I brought up.
So past due,
That's graduation.
past due invoices that span from 2018 to 2022, could we just see what those are and why those weren't paid? I mean, were they past due because they submitted it and we never paid, or they forgot to submit to us, or? I mean, because that spans a lot of
Yeah,
years.
I vaguely remember getting a bill last year toward the end of the school year. And I don't know if it was yearbooks, I don't remember what it was, but I know it was overdue. And I'm like, if it's overdue and you got it, you pay it. You do, you pay it. If there's, I wanna say it was yearbooks. I'm not too
Yeah, but-
sure though, but I
Okay,
think,
I can understand if it's late, but 5 years late?
Right, did we get it, is my question.
this is what I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say, when I see something like that, I'm like, yeah, but I also realize,
Because we've
Lot of
talked about,
chaos.
we've talked about sinking fund and
Right.
bills coming in for 6 months at a time, a year later. I really think that, we really need to, especially if
almost-
it hasn't been encumbered, right?
yeah, I'm almost positive that this is,
We really have
Yearbooks.
to, as a recommendation by the auditor, we really have to start watching our expenditures.
absolutely.
And so you might see me really questioning more than normal.
So Dr. Edmondson,
I
is it
don't wanna-
possible to look at, to share those invoices so that we
Yeah,
know
listen,
what it is?
I have no problem with it, but I'm almost positive that's it. And also I can say, when you deal with a company and you have a past due balance, particularly if you left them and then you come back, they remind you, they're not gonna do business with you until you take care of that bill.
True.
Now, again, I don't know, 2018, 2019, no clue. But I'm pretty sure that came to me that in order to do, I think it was something, I don't know if it was for graduation, but I remember something like that because I'm like, how the hell you gonna be 4 or 5 years late on something? It makes no sense.
Right.
Welcome to
Right.
my world.
So, okay, and then my other question is, Metro Detroit, and I apologize, it was a busy weekend, and I didn't get a chance to submit these. But, Detroit, Metro Bureau, collective bargaining, what is their role in collective bargaining that we're paying them?
For $50, I have no idea. For real, I have no idea.
Well, no, I'm just wondering, because I know
Yeah, I
we're
can find out for
with,
you. I have no idea.
MLI and,
I don't even know who that is, Detroit. I don't
yeah,
know.
it's like like Michigan Leadership Institute or maybe.
Oh, Metro,
But it's
oh,
it's a counterpart.
oh, okay, that's Metro
I
Bureau.
wonder if it's like a.
No, it's Metro
subscription.
Bureau, we belong to them, we belong to that organization, so it's probably some, I don't wanna say kind of
It's fees are
training or
usually-
something,
yeah.
but usually,
Okay,
I was like, the Detroit got me, it's just Metro Bureau.
and then my last question is Gianmarco Mullins and Horton. We use them exclusively for the transportation lawsuit, which is wrapped up, so what are those,
This summer, they are approved, they were one of the law firms that were approved this summer, for sure. Because of how much they charge, I know for sure, and I actually met with the gentleman before. So we told them that we would certainly like to give them an opportunity,
okay,
but I'll leave it at that, because
Okay.
I don't want it used against us.
That's fine.
But,
okay. Okay. I just wanna make sure
No,
that that's
sure.
not something that was covered under
No.
that deductible that we claimed and, okay.
I do
Thank
have
you.
one more question.
no
Yes,
problem.
ma'am.
And we have pretty much eliminated credit cards in this district. And I see that we paid $31,000 this month on this check run for credit cards.
Where's that?
Next to the last page, $31,916. Hello?
There are two credit cards in
Two credit
central
cards.
office.
Okay.
One is transportation, one is maintenance, and the other one covers everybody else. So we have two cards. Bill has his, then the other one, we all share. So just get
This is
shared.
going to start being reduced though, right?
Oh, absolutely. And we don't wanna get all into it, but yes, I'll say that.
Thank you,
I'll say that.
thank you. That's what purchase orders are for.
Thank you. I absolutely agree with that.
Thank you.
So, and because it was said in open meeting and because it's required under budget transparency reporting, those district credit cards need to be posted on our website along with the
We'll let Maria do
balances.
that.
I'm just saying, because that has
I get
not
it.
been posted in a while, so now that we've talked about 31,000, right?
So let's, I guess directly, I'll be brief, this isn't yet my report, but we've had finance problems for how long? We've had finance directors, we've had directors of finance, we've had supervisors, we've had a ton of people. Okay, now it's time to let it work. Okay, we have somebody that's here who's really helping us get it organized, because it wasn't organized, that's clear. You have different people doing different things. They come in, they work for 6, 7 months, they do their thing, they leave. Next person comes in, they do 6, 7 months, they leave. Hopefully, that's not the case now, even though we're still looking to stabilize our finance department. But it's easy to play Monday morning quarterback, to look now and say, oh, we should have, no. We're trying to put some things in order. That's the beauty that I see, that we have somebody that we're working with who sees some of this stuff, sees the same stuff, and who is more than qualified, okay, to handle it. And I'm very excited about the direction, because we have these kind of conversations like, there needs to be some consistency on certain things. I agree with you, so let's let it work. That's all I'm gonna say.
Well, Dr. Edmondson, the reason I asked is because we list
No, that
3
wasn't to you.
cards.
It wasn't to you.
We list that we have 3 cards, 2 MasterCards with $5,000 limits and a Home Depot card with $2,500 limit. So to
Fine.
see that, you know, we've got credit card limits of $12,500, but we see a payment of 30-some thousand.
Yeah,
That's-
you know, listen, again.
I mean, and
when I-
that's not about, and we can't look back and blame, right? But we can say, here's where we are now, how do we do better?
Oh, absolutely. There's no blame. Not, I don't have anything to say about that.
Was there any more discussions under the bills for payment?
Move that the Board of Education approve the bills for payment as submitted by Dr. Maria Gistinger.
Support. We have a motion by Pyle, supported by Bernard. Roll call vote.
Piles, yes. Kennard?
Yes.
Evetts?
Yes.
Laster?
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
McCarthy? Yes. Wester?
Yes.
Motion carries.
The next question was in regards to the personnel employment.
Yes, my question is employment of Eric Bowl as a 7th grade social studies teacher at Romulus Middle School. Is this person only going to teach 7th grade? And what are they doing the other hours?
I don't know who that person is. I'll stay in my lane.
As you so often like to venture. Just kidding. No, it's 7th grade specifically, but they'll be teaching other things throughout the day. I mean, it's, I think 4 hours of social studies, 7th grade, if I'm not mistaken. So then there's 2 hours of electives, or there's 1 hour prep and 1 hour of elective would be my guess. But yes, and it is also a former student from here.
So are they
is a great
taking, I'm just wondering, like, there's the 6th grade and the 8th grade social studies. Will they be taking that? I mean, because the teacher who's being replaced had all those grades.
Correct. They're
So-
replacing that person in their schedule.
Okay, so it's
Yes.
just a
I guess that's
middle
the easy
school,
answer.
a middle
It's
school.
middle school social studies teacher.
not just
We put 7th grade on
Thank
there
you.
because that's the main focus, but yes.
Okay,
This
thank you.
person is replacing the other
Yep,
person.
great.
Is an easy answer.
Great.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Move that the Board of Education approve the personnel actions as submitted by Human Resources Director Kevin Brock.
Support. I have a motion by Pyle, supported by Wester. Roll call vote.
Piles, yes. Wester?
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Laster?
Yes.
Evetts?
Yes.
Kennard?
Yes.
McCarthy? Yes. Motion carries.
Report of the superintendent. You have anything else?
No, I'm kind of like Trustee Evans today. I'm kind of chill.
Thank you. Next.
No, I believe, I know you all have an email that you have to open at some point. You're gonna have to open the email. But other than that, I really didn't have much to say. I'm looking forward to, I mean, the Chamber of Commerce event was nice. I want to thank the staff for coming on out and you know, supporting me as well and supporting the district. I think it's something that we should, you know, when I was sitting there, when it was over, a number of people in the community, there were only about 8 there. So let me just be clear on that. There were only about 8 people before Thanksgiving, but they had said that, I wish that you could do this for the city of some sort. I don't know how. I don't think it would be well attended. I think if we were like this, The state of the schools, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that would be something that would be well attended. It would be something that I would be absolutely willing to try, because I think there was important information. I sent the information to you as the board. IDEX, from IDEX, great information, very eye-opening.
Thank you for that.
You saw some transportation things, very eye-opening. And some of the other things. And listen, I don't know everything. We already know that. I don't know everything. But when I get information, I try to synthesize and make decisions that are gonna put us in the right place. I can't be everybody's big brother looking over everybody, seeing if everybody's doing. You're supposed to do what you're supposed to do, okay? And then I have to do what I need to do. But I do have a feel for the district. I know what's going on in the district. I'm trying to continue to lead us in the district. I wanna get over, as I say to my staff, at some point, we're no longer able to say, well, before us, this happened. Right? And I said, this is it. This is it. It's about, this year is the last time that I will be able to say, well, that didn't happen during my administration. It's time to move on. Let's move on and let's move this district forward, particularly in the next 3 to 5 years. We have got to get people involved in a strategic plan. It cannot be the Board of Education and my team. That will not work. Somebody has to make some decisions, and I think there's tough decisions, as I said before. And I said to the Chamber of Commerce, every building is under capacity. Not one building has 50%. Okay, we need to start thinking about, somebody's gotta make some tough decisions. And as I said there, I'm not telling you what those decisions are, but at some point, this isn't 2002 anymore. Stop talking about what Romulus was and start talking about what Romulus will be. Thank you, Sandy, because I believe you gave that to me. Let's stop talking about what it was. And let's dream about what it will be. And it can only be us. I mean, we have to be going out to the community, okay? As I said in our last meeting, if we're not together, come on, we already know. I don't want to talk about that stuff anymore. We got to move together, move forward. We have to hold the community accountable for what this district is going to be. And then guess what? If we have a strategic plan, our favorite 2 words, we have a strategic plan, then you can hold me accountable, or if it's not me, the next person that sits here. I think the community deserves some stability. I deserve stability. You all deserve stability. Okay, we have got to, in the next month, we have got to get out in this community and get people involved in the strategic plan. What will we be? Do we want to continue to have all these buildings that are under capacity? And if we even think about closing a school, I always say, Superintendency 101. Everybody remember what I say? You do not ever close a school building if you don't know what you're gonna do with it. Because the community will turn on you, and they deserve to turn on you, because you left it vacant, and then you already know what happens. And I'm not suggesting that we close, but I'm asking, and I'm suggesting that we think about the future. What makes our district so special? Why wouldn't we go to Huron? I go to Huron, I saw their achievement. Why?
Nah.
I'm just saying, if you're looking at it, I'm gonna ask you, what makes ours so different? And we need to make it different. What do we want for the kids in this community? And we've got to start thinking about that, particularly in the next month. Okay, I'm dreaming big. I'm gonna throw everything at you that I think, if you don't like it, then don't vote for it, and don't go for it. Okay, it's not a vote. Don't just look at me like I'm crazy, okay? But some of you do, so you're already doing a good job. But the bottom line is, we're going to have to push that. If we only have this amount of people in a strategic plan, and it's not a one-day thing.
Right.
It is a commitment. It is a commitment. I've said to Jesse before, what's our music program? Why don't we have a K-5 arts? Why not? K-5 arts, where you're learning how to play an instrument. Most of the time of the day, you're doing that. Your 2 electives are music and band and choir. Think differently. What do we want that's gonna attract people in this community to wanna be here? And we're gonna have to make that decision. I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the
Yes.
agenda, we have the report of Director of Human Resources. Trustee Kennard, can you read that motion, please?
Recommended motion. Recommended motion, move that the Board of Education approve Mr. Brock as chief negotiator. The rationale is AFSCME. The budget implications is none. There's no exhibits in the board packet.
Support.
We have a motion by Kennard, supported by Davis. Any discussion?
I have a question.
Yes?
So when does this current collective bargaining agreement expire?
This collective bargaining agreement ends this June 30th, 2024.
So, and that's what I thought. So my question is, sorry, let me write that down. My question is this something that, because we have time, is this something that we can delay this vote until we get an idea of where we are with our amended budget, our parameters, because we can't do any negotiating prior to that time anyway. So can we get a better idea of where we are financially, what our parameters will be, so that at least the efforts are aligned with what's realistic for us?
Yeah, so there's a lot of front-end work that needs to be done in this contract, because when this contract was negotiated, I believe it was last year, October, November of last year, approved in December. It was like a kitchen sink. Everything was thrown into this contract as well as the kitchen sink. So delaying this vote doesn't mean that anything's gonna halt. I'm having you approve me as a chief negotiator so that in January, February, March, I can begin the process with the group and I have time to prepare. So at this point, you approve it, don't approve it, hold it up, don't hold it up. You're just gonna delay the inevitable. Unless you don't want me as a chief negotiator, I'm good with that as well. I don't have any issue with one way or another. So at some point, whether I'm the chief negotiator or not, I anticipate being a part of those negotiations. So this is just acknowledging that I'm the chief negotiator. I don't attempt to do anything before January or February. I've had conversations. They've already submitted what's called a para request, which means they're requesting all of our financials. They've requested the last 3 years of financials. So they're already in the process of moving forward, which I've given to them as well. So I don't anticipate meeting with them officially until end of January, beginning of February even. So I won't have an idea until we do our first amendment of where we're at with the budget, so.
Because, yeah, and that's part of the process of finding out what's wrong with the current contract, obviously, and that doesn't require approval, but figuring out what's wrong, what the district needs out of it, what the group wants out of it. Everybody can be doing their work. I'm just, again, because I know at a previous meeting, there was a comment about you'd started working on doing negotiations with us, and so.
Well, let me be clear, I've not started negotiations. I did not make that comment, I would not make that comment. What I've started was, I had a meeting with that organization to get on the same page with the contract, because there are, at least that I'm aware of, there are 3 different contracts and several different MOUs out there. So I've met with that organization. For all of us, those of us who might be negotiating a contract, we did not negotiate. All we did was come together at a table. They brought what they had, I brought what we had. I am in the process of marrying all of those together, so we have one document to negotiate from when we decide to negotiate.
So
Now
I
you
have a
guys get-
comment. Oh, I'm sorry, Judith, go ahead.
All right, thank you. Okay, so traditionally, can you hear me? Okay, traditionally, when negotiations happen, we've always assumed or knew that the human resources director was the lead person. So I guess my question would be, what is the significance of, what does this mean, chief negotiator, and who is the team? Okay, is that team identified now, prior to, what is all the parameters? Because it's already been written and understood that the human resources person was always the lead person or part of the team. And so, what are you talking?
And I can so much appreciate that, but in my experience thus far here, I don't want to run on any assumptions. In every district that I've been a chief negotiator, whether I've been on the bargaining side with the collective bargaining group, or I've been on the administrative side, there has always been a board motion to identify on the board's behalf a chief negotiator. I don't want to make any assumptions. Sitting at this table 2 months from now, I don't want somebody to say, you made the assumption that you were the chief negotiator. Not going to play that. I don't want to go down that road. I'd rather the board identify who the chief negotiator, whether it's me or Dr. Edmondson or his designee. moving forward, if I am identified as the chief negotiator, I would come back to this table once we're ready to negotiate, as in having you identify and approve the team that would sit with me to negotiate.
So you're saying you're the spokesperson of the team?
Correct.
I'm wanting you to acknowledge your assumption that I will lead this negotiation, but I want it documented, as I have in every other situation that I've been in, that's all. Chief just means I'm the one that's gonna organize all the meetings, I'm the one that's going to review contracts, along with the potential of a labor attorney. I'm the one that's going to probably marry contracts together. You're authorizing me to review letters of understanding. There's a whole plethora of things.
Well, that's-
I want you to identify and approve your assumptions.
That's what I want you to do, is to give us explanation.
Right.
Yep,
And so you just done that?
yes, ma'am.
All right.
So I have a comment, sorry,
Yes,
President.
ma'am.
So you said that there's numerous contracts, that this contract was opened up and signed in December last year. The only thing that was added to that contract last year was the custodians. Everything else stayed in place,
Right.
okay? So to say that there were 3 or 4 things that was opened up, all these changes were made and everything else, that is
So-
not what this board was presented with. This board was presented with only adding the custodians to that contract. In that the contract would remain the same, just with that addition.
Okay, well, let me clarify, don't put words in my mouth. I
I'm
did
not-
not say
I'm-
open, I didn't say that it was reopened, I didn't say it was, there are 3 different versions that I'm aware of, as well as 2 or 3 different LOUs that were not included in the contract, that should have been melded into the contract. They're not there. They're present, but they're not in the contract. So there is one contract, custodians were added, but the language that was added and the pieces that were added for custodians and maintenance, those were both added, not just custodian. Custodian and maintenance, the language and verbiage is different in 3 different contracts that I'm aware of.
That was.
Then as a board member, I would like to see those, because
Yes.
we voted on one contract, and if something is different, this board needs to review what is
Yes.
out there.
I just-
That's my comment.
No, I understand, but the only change that was made was adding in maintenance and custodian. We didn't touch anything else. And I think that's what he's trying to say in a roundabout way. Nothing else got touched. It was
Not
only
true,
thing.
he's saying
Actually,
LOUs are out
the
there.
secretaries
They
got
could have,
touched.
they could have been, I'm saying LOUs could have been there prior. It could have already been in place prior to us opening
So,
up.
so let me
Yeah.
clarify, let me clarify. There is one LOU that I'm aware of that deals with PTO days, paid time off days. That was added after the contract was approved. I don't know if it was brought to this body, I was not here at the time when this occurred. I can tell you that was brought to me after I started because it wasn't included in the original contract. And that's okay, you can have an LOU after the contract. What I'm saying to you is what I was provided when I got here, what was tentatively agreed upon and signatured by both negotiating parties does not match what I was given or provided with when I got here. So I recently located the original tentative agreement. I have asked the union to provide me with what they have, and then my copy. My copy, I would say, is probably the most invalid copy. It might have been a version 2 or a version 3, but that's what I was provided with when I got here. So my job was to go through the tentative agreement that was signed, and I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that that was the one that was approved by the board. I don't know that you ever received a final copy for you guys to sign. I can tell you that's never happened. That was the goal of that meeting, was to make sure that what was agreed upon in that tentative agreement now gets put into a living, breathing, not that a TA is not a living, breathing document, but you all, those of you that need to sign it, have not signed the signature page of the contract. But yes, you're correct, nothing else was touched. The custodians and maintenance were put in there. After it was approved, there was an LOU that was added later. My job was to get them all put into a document that we can work from to negotiate from.
So is the contract that is posted on our district's website the current contract?
I would say no, because the one that I have is a tentative agreement. It's got everybody's signature on every page, or on the front page.
Okay.
So I did not have that until about a week ago. It was buried in a file.
So if what is, oh, yeah, this isn't the current contract because it, well, if this is not the current contract, we need to get it down and get the, and we can find out what the current contract is because I'll go back through my email and see what we approved and look at minutes and I can send that. And then I know that we added custodial after that and I can forward a copy of that. And then we, is the MOU you're speaking of when we increased the secretary's pay? Because we did do that.
No, that's different. I'm talking about there's an MOU. That one I'm well aware of. That one I was a participant in. That one you all approved. I brought that for your approval. That will get added into the next contract.
Right.
The one I'm speaking about is there was a fairly lengthy letter of understanding regarding paid time off.
Yeah, but if
So-
it's signed and dated by any party, we can go back and check the minutes. And I'd
That'd
be
be
willing to
great.
do that. So, I guess my concern is just, wanting to do better, as a board than we did in the previous, negotiations. As far as, and the HR director is always, overseeing negotiations, but it, as directed by the Board of Education.
Making sure that we have our parameters and things in the right
Right.
place as we get
So,
started.
so nothing should take place, because what, the fear is if anything takes place, then we could be looking at regressive bargaining. So we need no negotiating to take place. Yes, gather documents, gather concerns, but no discussions, no, and I respectfully request that the, motion be amended to reflect that we're merely acknowledging that, yes, the HR director oversees negotiations, but that nothing is to start until the Board of Education has voted in open well, no, that we can vote on a closed session, the budget parameters, and that the Board of Education is getting regular progress updates, and that finance is very much involved in this, so we're knowing the cost of steps, of percentage increases, because here we are in November, 5 months after voting for the REA contract, and from HR and even from finance, we still have not been told the total cost of that contract. We were told the cost of increases for each of the 3 years, and we were told how many teachers are in each step and under what grade. And from there, we were able to calculate that the cost of the 3-year REA contract is $41 million. But it's very scary to realize that negotiators went in and negotiated that without knowing the cost until it was calculated months later.
Thank you, Secretary Piles, for your concerns. As we move forward, we will have the budget amendment coming up, I think, in January. So then we will be able to sit down and set the parameters of where we want to see, what we want to go, and start those negotiations, and making sure that we do get the follow-up and feedback as things progress.
Thank you. So I would like to make an amended motion, move that the Board of Education acknowledge that Mr. Brock, as HR Director, will oversee negotiations, but no bargaining will take place until the Board of Education has set the parameters.
Is there support?
Support.
We have an amended motion by Piles, supported by Evans. Roll call vote.
Piles, yes. Evans?
Yes.
McCarthy? Yes. Laster?
Yes.
Kennard?
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Wester?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, but shouldn't we made one motion, don't we need to remove that motion from the floor?
Not if the amended was passed, we're okay.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're
But
doing it.
thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have the report of board subcommittees.
You don't have anything?
Board subcommittees.
The Finance Committee is meeting on the 13th at 1 p.m. It'll be a virtual meeting.
13th, as in December 13th?
Yes, ma'am, December 13th.
I'm sorry, what time again was that?
1 p.m.
1 p.m.
I apologize.
No problem. Thank you so much. We're at the, did you have anything? Oh, yeah, okay. So report of the board president.
There's still, Secretary Piles and Trustee Evans, you two have you're on a it's like community, some kind of community.
Community outreach.
Let's get together.
Okay.
Let's have
Yeah.
a discussion, please.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Report of the board president. Thank you, everyone. It's so nice to see everyone. Hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving, spending time with family and friends. I want to give a shout out to RHS.
RHS.
Listen, the high school.
I was hustling, my bad.
Yeah, don't y'all look at my notes. Romulus Community School Marching Band for being at the Thanksgiving parade. They did it awesome. I watched it on TV. They did an awesome job. Mr. Ed, our treasurer, Mr. Davis, assistant, so that you guys did an awesome assisting as our volunteer. Did an awesome job. It was so nice to see us down. They looked good on TV. They really did. Yeah, sounded good and everything. On the side of our conversation.
I mean, RCS.
I'm sorry. Like I said, it's so nice to see everyone here today. Like I said, we coming off of our Thanksgiving holiday. It was really hard to come back to work, short time, spending time with family and friends. I just want to thank the gentleman, Mr. Chamberlain, for coming out and giving us a presentation on Mount Pleasant and how we can start to move forward and looking into that. Also, Mr. Rourke for the data information.
Yes.
Good information for us to kind of like moving forward, getting our district together, knowing where we are and where we need to get to. Just. I thought my mama was at home. Board members, there is an email that you received, so please review that email here shortly. Mr. Darcell, you have anything?
Yes. I also wanted to congratulate the high school marching band on their participation in the Thanksgiving Day Parade. And I wanted to thank Ms. Race for the opportunity to allow me to carry the banner.
Oh.
My arms are not sore anymore, but carrying a banner
Built up
was
some muscles.
yeah, I got a good exercise. And I also wanted to give my condolences to our resident Ohio State University football fan. Devastating loss.
Give a tiny violin.
Everybody was nervous with 1 minute to go. I don't care what side you were on. you were
Hail
nervous.
to the victors.
That's right.
You got it, you won.
But when the clock hit 000.
Like my Belleville's lost yesterday.
That was, hey. Anyway.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Trustee Laster. Trustee Evans.
I just want to thank everyone for coming out. Hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving. Looking forward to moving forward on everything.
Yes.
Trustee Kennard. Nothing at this time. Secretary Powell.
Two things. The marching band, Ms. Race, thank you for that. I know that takes a lot of extra time. We know that. We cannot comprehend how much extra time. And sacrificing that time away from your family to provide our students with that experience, they'll remember for the rest of their lives. So thank you for doing that. And also our music boosters is a phenomenal group of people who come around, who stay even after their children graduate, and support Ms. Race so that our students can have these opportunities. So I want to thank everybody who takes time to participate in the boosters. Big shout out to Dr. Meese. I'm so excited. This year we have had more social workers staffed than any other year. When we'd hear, oh, they can't be found, he's finding them. And if we, on our agendas, we're approving gen ed social workers. So yeah, we're past COVID, but we're not past the impact that it left on families, specifically children. So that's exciting. So thank you to Dr. Meese for making that a priority and making that happen.
I'm one of many that are prioritized.
Oh, I didn't know you were there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam VP? Back here. Yes, Superintendent?
Yeah, also, I wanted to thank the elementary music teacher, Mr. Stephen D'Angelo. I was not here for that, but at Hale Creek, I know for sure that music is going throughout the hallways and kids are excited and he's got programs.
Oh, that's good.
And you know, we all know, when you had that passionate teacher, we all know who that was in our lives. We know which teacher was passionate about what and which ones got you excited. So going over to Hale Creek, if you get an opportunity and see what Mr. D'Angelo is doing over there for the music program, so I certainly wanted to acknowledge that as well. That's it for me, I'm good. Go Bucks, next year.
Move to adjourn.
We have the closed session.
We need to read the email.
Read the
You
email.
need to read your email before a vote is taken, please.
Can we go into recess to talk about that?
Yes, let's recess to read our emails, please.
Someone make the motion to go into recess.
Make a motion to
President
go,
can just call it.
we're gonna go into recess for 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
Support.
Quick huddle.
Oh, that's gonna be a whole.
It's 8:01.
You can put your car in sport mode.
Excellent.